So I said it'd probably shear the side of the, the spacecraft off. And then he was talking about reality. Like, you get down to this and like, how are we going to get all these systems working? And one of the things they're doing is they're starting on it, right now. They're starting
Okay.
to work on it.
Okay. So the limit of physics is we're looking to get out of the solar system here.
Yeah,
That would be like the main hopes of physics, because
yeah,
right now I'm going to say to the audience, generally we rely on physics to build our technological equipment, which
yeah,
has added a good bit of pleasure to our lives with cell phones,
mhm.
computers,
All kinds
to
of
be
stuff.
able to access
Yeah, all kinds of stuff.
any video on the internet,
Hmm.
um, see any kind of media. We have 3D movies that we
Yeah,
constantly see. Of course, that technology has been around for quite some time, but they're becoming more frequent these days.
it's been around 100 years, and I mean, in the history of civilization, that isn't even very long, let alone in the history of mankind. But
Okay,
uh,
but the next thing behind that,
yeah,
okay, so we've put people on the moon,
yeah,
but and uh, our next greatest hope for mankind is just to be able to travel out of the solar system and possibly inhabit other
I
planets.
think yeah,
Now, like, I mean, that's what I think. Wouldn't that be the ultimate thing, to
I
go
think it's to
inhabit
give people hope.
other planets?
I think, like, even in the '60s, when they ran a space program like that with the Vietnamese War caving in the United States, you had, the civil rights movement. I used to have a professor. We used to always think he was nuts. God, did you hear what he said? But he was one of those guys that about 10 years later, you realize, God, that guy was a hell of a lot smarter than we thought. But he used to sit there and he said, I don't think that's the real purpose of the space program, technological advance. And we're sitting there, well, what the hell else is the reason for it? And he said, I think it gives people hope. And it does. It gives people actually hope that we can actually do this. We can. I know there's a bad part of it. That means we think we can have a throwaway world right now. We can just throw away this planet and go to another one. And
Right.
I met a.
Yeah. That
That's
is
a
kind of the
problem.
mentality that we have.
We're
We
forgiven
just
for our
think that
sins.
physics is going to be able to figure out this
Hmm.
problem
Yeah,
with
it always has.
this
Hmm.
problem, this
Yeah,
physical problem of
yeah,
getting a spacecraft through
right,
wormholes.
right.
There's a limitation to how fast we can travel. It's the speed of light right now. That's currently what the limitation
Yeah,
to our speed travel
I.
is, to
But
the
if we,
best of our understanding.
yeah, if we folded space like what they're talking about in wormholes, you know, how fast you have to go.
Yeah, but I mean
I.
that's such a complex procedure, and
Yeah,
also like the Earth, it only has so many resources
right.
to build this stuff.
That's right.
Has
That's right.
physics.
So far.
I mean, has physics in terms of. I'm not talking about in terms of its understanding, but I'm
Uh,
talking about in terms of its things that we can apply through physics.
uh,
Has physics really just hit a ceiling as far as that stuff
I don't know
is
because
concerned?
if we went to Aristotle and we went to Isaac Newton, you see, I mean, I have to go along with this idea too that we've
Is
gotten dumber rather than smarter, which people don't like. But here's
right.
the idea. I think, I mean, I don't know when people
Right,
built the
right,
pyramids.
but the point being, is it really a stupid idea for society to believe that we're going
No,
to get off of this
no, it gives them hope. It's like religion.
solar system?
I don't think it's a stupid idea. I
And
don't know if it's a
and
possible idea, but
and
I don't think it's a stupid idea.
are the physics being possibly dishonest with us about that? How many of
No,
them really would
no.
agree that we would
I
be able
think
to
they,
get past?
I think they are really hoping that they can get a breakthrough. I mean, I see it in these guys' eyes. I mean, granted, a lot of them are looking for the $1 million grant and easy street for a long time, but it's going to take money, and it's going to take a lot of people like this who believe in it. And I mean, more power to them if they believe. I mean, more power to them. I mean, God, I mean, I could sit there and say, well, Isaac Newton thought he hit a limit. Leibniz might have with infinitesimal calculus. Russell, you'd say the more mathematics is about reality, the less mathematics is real.
Right, but I mean, mathematics. I mean,
Mhm.
as far as making a spaceship travel, if you just did an equation using
Right.
either Newton's theory or even Einstein's
right,
theory
right,
for that matter,
okay,
to make something the mass of the space shuttle go just 1 million miles per hour in space, that is 1/700th.
yeah,
That's about 1/700th of the speed of light.
yeah, I know, and that's
Just to make
fast.
it go that fast,
And then if you hit
you
a
would
pellet,
need 400 times
yeah,
the amount of fuel
they would have
that
to,
it has,
they would have to fold space.
that it goes up with to launch itself into orbit.
They would have to fold space, and I think they would have to have a thing kind of like, I saw this thing, I mean, I know this is, harken back to science fiction, but I don't think that's bad because it gives you ideas. This spaceship they have in like Stargate Universe,
Right.
where it just goes right into the outer atmosphere of a star actually, re-energizes itself in space through that,
Right.
and then keeps going again. And like that is
And the
probably what somebody's going to have to come up with, a way to
right.
re-energize themselves in space like that and to withstand those heats.
Right. I mean that technology.
Hmm.
I mean that may never even
Yeah,
be possible now. Like,
it might. The tech. Yeah,
so what's the next step in mankind's
I.
um,
That's what I don't know.
in
I don't
improving
think.
their general well-being?
Yeah,
Because there's different
yeah,
paradigms as to
right,
how to go about life, and there's
right. Yeah,
things that have marginal utility. Now, as far as physics is concerned, they can
uh-huh,
only um, come up with
yeah,
ideas
yeah.
to just to give us better cell phones and
One of the problems.
communications equipment right now. But everything right now is pretty much instantaneous. And
Yeah,
I
one.
mean, how much faster can you make the internet
Right.
go, and how many more apps are
That's
you going
right.
to add to
That's right. I
cell phones? I
yeah,
mean,
I don't know. You see, I don't
so
know where they go.
that seems like kind of a limitation,
One of the limits is you always pollute, you always
right?
destroy more than you create. So you're always going to create more pollution
Right.
than you create energy. Or the side effect of creation of energy of this magnitude, like say nuclear
Yeah.
energy. Like I mean,
Now what? Now, now let's get off the top subject. Okay, so if physics has reached its limit,
I don't think
it,
it has. I think physics. I mean, I think physics, honest to God, can hit a breakthrough here. No matter how mystical it might seem or anything, I think physics is just even beginning right now. I mean, I think we have I think physicists know it too, that they've just scratched the surface and that they really want to scratch farther. And I mean,
but
more power to them if they can do it. Well, I mean, literally more power to them. I mean, quite literally. I mean, I hope they do something. A guy was talking to me like, you get into this painting. I was getting some art supplies at a Walmart, okay, down here, and I had some horseradish with me, and the guy looked at it and he says, you're one of those kind of crazy guys. I said, yeah, I'm kind of like Van Gogh. I said, I'm going to eat all. Van Gogh ate his paints 3 times and tried to commit suicide. And so I said, yeah, I'm kind of like Van Gogh. I said, I just, if I don't like the painting, I just eat my paints and wash it down with horseradish and then puke it out on the canvas. And, I get this, and he kind of laughed, but I could understand it the way he laughed. He really understood it. And he says, no, no, he says, I'm not kidding you. He says, people aren't going to do this anymore. People aren't going to do anything with their hands anymore. And this is one thing I had to get with Avant
right.
Games or Avant Quest Games, where they were coming out with this thing about game theory. And, like,
Um,
hopefully they'll give a Nobel Prize for
to,
game theory.
to just change the subject right here. I don't want to go too in depth into the ins and outs. Later on, we can do
Oh,
an
anyway, I just want to
interview
mention this.
about some of this stuff.
They give a PhD, they give a Nobel Prize in game theory. They gave it to John Nash for economic game theory. The Princeton faculty actually got together.
Wow.
They do give a Nobel Prize for game theory. He got the Nobel Prize for game theory, not for economics or not for mathematics or not for anything like that. He got it for game theory. So all you people in video games, all you video gamers, I call this the greatest. I'll tell you, I have tapes up there, like from back in the 90s. This is the greatest video game ever played. This is the greatest video game ever played, right
Okay.
here.
We want to ask a question. there is some spirituality or something
Hmm.
that deals with spirits that
Moves us. What moves
that,
us?
that in it's in direct your paintings really harp on
Hmm.
that issue.
Hmm. Hmm.
You feel it to be like the
Yeah.
a very
Yeah.
uninhibited way of getting the human spirit
Oh, it's not only
out
him.
onto these paintings. They're full of images from Atlantean
Egyptian
and
Atlantis. Yeah, the
Egyptian
pyramid
cults.
cults.
You also have some other stuff of
Uh-huh.
maybe a little bit of Eastern
Oh, a lot of Eastern.
religious symbols
Hmm.
in there as well. We see
I think, if I can say a word here just to throw this in, anybody who's dealt with the empirical ego in psychoanalysis, hold on a second. That's unconscious and normally the invisible persona, which makes you move in this world. Now, 99.9% of the people might never hit this process of individuation. But what this has to do with is a concept called the jiva in the Indic tradition in India. That tradition in yoga, in which the first part of self awareness and self discovery is trying to make the invisible part of your persona visible. Now, the way they started this out was a system called Asa Prajanata and Samprajanata Samandi,
right,
which is the biggest controversial subject also right now
right.
in Oriental
Now,
philosophy.
now, do people have to be educated that well
No,
to get in touch with
they
this
don't have to be educated. Nobody had a
new realm of
PhD.
spirit? Because
Nobody had a PhD in physics when I learned how to play.
because Judaism and the Jewish, Christian, and Muslim religion,
Yeah,
they seem to be kind of wearing thin on the population, and we're having
yeah,
our
yeah, very,
discontents with them, and that's where one of the things where
yeah.
physics gets into the
Civilization
battle
and
with them,
discontents
where
with Freud.
you
Yeah.
know Hitchens, he's a great writer and an
Here-
atheist, but also a good amount of
yeah.
scientists, especially physicists,
Oh, yeah. I want to hit
are
that point.
atheists,
Yeah,
or they label themselves that way. And
agnostics.
there's many direct debates, public debates
Yeah,
between atheists and people of the Jewish, Muslim, and
well,
Christian religions. Pretty much religions that believe in the God that you call Yahweh or Allah. In the
yeah,
English
Allah
language,
or Jesus Christ.
we say God with a
Jesus
capital
Christ was the
G.
deal in Christianity.
But
Yeah, I
but
want to get on that.
can people like possibly um would it be better if we looked into new types of spirit in order to
We're trying to.
progress and not
We're
just
trying
go
to. We're trying to. They're holding it
pure
back. They're holding it back. No, no. The
right?
Masons, you get on a high enough level and you get into real symbolism and you're dealing with the 33rd degree of
But
Freemasonry.
I mean, they're really not going to be able to hold this stuff back. I
Yeah,
mean,
they are.
I mean, they can slow it down, but I mean, really,
They've really slowed me down.
it's
Let
out
me
of
tell
their
you.
control.
No, it's in their control because they've sure as hell slowed me down. I mean, I have one comment for Dan Brown, unfortunately, and Ron Howard and Tom Hanks, and they've done an excellent job too with these. They're great artists.
But a lot of
They're
these things, this mentality, it's not expansive enough, especially in areas where people are not really progressive
they don't have to.
enough.
They don't want to be progressive. That's what's called social conservatism in the Republican. I mean, it's another name for being a racist, as far as I'm concerned. But you have you can be a racist and get away with it. I mean, a real conservative like these people who can't like my dad, your was around Calvin Coolidge and people like that who were really conservatives and. I mean, they believed in the Constitution up and down, and they didn't hide behind the Constitution to support their own prejudices a lot of times. And
Maybe people it's offensive to people's ideas,
it's irrelevant.
but then when they see something how intriguing something is like
Uh,
Greek temples
they don't think it's
and
intriguing.
maybe some of the old buildings of India and the complexity and the artwork and the things that influence that stuff or the ideas. Okay, whether they
Yeah.
there are spirits that are real, or if the spirit is just something of the unconscious mind that.
It wouldn't make any difference. It's still
But
real.
but just
That's
the
the point I want to
motivation
hit.
for doing those that types of artwork
We're
and the
not.
types of meditation that you get into, and producing those types of results. Once people really see that type of stuff,
They think they've made. They think they've got. Okay, the Judeo-Christian tradition, or the Abrahamic tradition,
right.
is the only tradition that has the concept of the devil in it too. They created that one too. But if you really get into this,
I mean, not all Christians are bad in Jews, though. I mean,
no, they're
you
not.
know,
They're
I
not
mean,
bad at all. I mean,
there's a
no.
select group that,
We call it the fifth gospel. There's only four real gospels. I know all people who are Christians know there's only four real gospels. Most Christians have never read the Bible. It's like most Americans
right.
have never read the Declaration of Independence or the Constitution, and they call themselves Americans. But the issue is with this.
But the truth be told, as far as like, I mean, in order for even America to progress, we cannot center our problems around Israel, because there's lots of other things to be done in this
Oh no, I
in the
wouldn't
entire.
center around Israel either. I mean, that was one of the deal. Truman thought he was the reincarnation
Right.
of oh,
And we do
God,
and we do get hooked into this whole thing that's happening in the Mid East, when there's all
oh,
kinds
we're
of other
hooked into it.
things.
A lot of our friends have died in that. Yeah, they come
There's
home maimed.
lots of other
And
things
then
going
the
on.
poor Muslims that are there, God, they're getting waxed. Period. I mean, there's more Muslims getting killed than anybody else in this whole crazy stuff.
And here's the thing: is we're going to this
Yeah.
Holy Land, but it's like maybe
We
it's
call
almost
it the Holy Land.
it's almost becoming a fact. It's typically known as the whole, in the
They
Western
name,
world.
yeah, they name it the Holy Land.
Like I said, many of our political views are centered around that.
For me, the Holy Land is the temples
Is that place
frescoes
become
of Ajanta and the pyramids in the Mayan cultures. And,
is that place a lost cause? Like maybe they just want to fight there, or something, and that's it. Where there's other areas of the
no,
world where there's conflict.
no,
There's
this is to fulfill the prophecies of their ancestral spirits, which is to bring on the age of the apocalypse. They want to bring the world to an end. I never realized what was in it for them. I don't know if they do.
yeah. So exactly, and
They're driven. They are driven to do this. I mean, you see a Muslim, you see a Jewish guy, you see a Christian that's really adamant about this. I mean, they have fire in their eyes. They're not playing around. This is not some intellectual. And this is where we misunderstand symbols and the effect of symbols on the unconscious, what it brings out. Most people don't realize what it brings out either, but whatever it brings
but
out is very strong.
but Mr. Higgins, where can we move on from there as far as a form
Okay.
spirituality?
I
Uh,
I
be-
don't think we can
I
get
mean,
away.
so
Oh,
you're saying we can't go anywhere?
no, we can go plenty of places
In where?
because we're feeling here. Let me explain something. We jump here. We're not talking about whether God exists here. We're talking about how God exists here.
Right.
And people create religions until we understand and want to put down, and this is where I get into trouble, you put down the exact symbols and the exact thing. What I call about spirit is principles of motion, things that move you. I mean, let's call it the principle of motion in existence rather than say, well, somebody's an agnostic, somebody's an atheist, somebody says, what moves you? And to explain this is really the key issue with where we have to go, like as far as symbolism, because how do these symbols, where do they come from? I don't know where they come from, but even if we get to the point of like, what symbols are we using? Are we using here, and how do they work? Like if I say,
Now, will we be able to? Will the culture be able to develop new symbols in shapes
oh,
that we visually reckon with,
they'll reckon with
that
it.
are as powerful as the old symbols, such as
Sure, no problem.
pyramids, crosses,
Sure,
ankhs,
sure.
and whatnot, and cause
No,
in hopefully causing a positive thing that
well, they think it is positive. You
we
see, the
gather
people,
around. Because when we do talk about religions, we are talking about people gathering around
but they,
symbols and shapes, and all that
Rituals.
stuff.
We're talking about ritualistic symbolic behavior centered around rituals. We have something coming up right here. Now, this is something you're not supposed to know anything about, the Passover, which the Muslims and the Jews will celebrate. That'll happen when the full moon wanes after the vernal equinox. That's how you describe.
Yeah.
If everybody wonders why Easter moves around, why the Passover moves around every year, that's because it begins. It is the celebration, the ritualistic celebration of the curse of the Passover. Okay, arguably the worst act of black magic, murder, and witchcraft in the annals of civilization, but we celebrate it. And it's the foundation for the exodus of Egypt. Now we know, for example, they got pay records for the people who built the pyramids, like the guy from France. Why isn't, to show you how much this is controlled, why isn't this guy getting any notoriety? I mean, he just shows how they can pour this. We already know how they could have poured the pyramids. I mean, nobody can figure it out any other way. This guy's not going to get any notoriety. And if you want to know how religion influences science, you have an issue right there. The criticism here, by the way, I'm making of Judaism and Christianity and Islam has nothing to do with the people's race. It has to do with their theology. Like, for example, if I say a black person is a Christian and a white person is a Christian, I'm dealing with what they spiritually believe. When I deal with a Jewish person, you can have a Jewish person who's an atheist. So take Freud, for example. I mean, he was talking to Jung, telling Jung in the foundation of psychoanalysis, oh, just make a bulwark of my idea of sexuality, and I'll make you a president of the International Psychiatric Association for life. He told Jung this because Freud was already in so much trouble. The rabbis were ready to shoot him on sight, just about. And I mean this. I mean, he was. He did.
Like,
and this is the foundation.
Have you found any symbols in your paintings? Again, we can see our problems.
I started with symbols.
We are ourselves wrapped up in this thing with the Mideast. But is there just some kind of thing that we can get into to get our heads off of that?
Yeah, I use a square. This is a real simple technique. I use basic color, basic symbols. You use a square around canvas. What you're trying to do is get a self-portrait of your inner self. Now, I know how crazy this sounds, but you use basic colors, you apply them full strength, you black and white, and then you concentrate on a symbol. Like, for example, if you want to know what a symbol means, you draw it and concentrate on it, and colors will start coming out of the canvas. The more and more and shapes will come out, and you try to copy all these down, and you keep trying to